A massive welcome to Ross Rennie, to Paul Woods and to Gerry McCafferty from the Tommy Burns and John Clark Jersey CSC. Lads, great to have you with us here on the Celtic Exchange today. Ross, to get us started, do you want to tell us a bit about how you ended up part of this Celtic Supporters Club, the most southerly CSC in the UK, I believe?
Yeah, thanks for having us on, Tino. So I probably first became involved with the Celtic Supporters Club the very first day I arrived in Jersey in 2000 with my mum and dad. It was the day of the 6-2 game. Before I arrived in Jersey, I lived up in Glasgow with my parents. And for no reason, I don't understand why to this day, but my dad decided we were travelling down in the day of the game. So we get the ferry from Poole over to Jersey. Obviously, year 2000 was before mobile phones, or as technical as the way they are today. So there was no internet in the phones. So the game kicked off, no idea what the score was. We arrived in Guernsey for a change of boat. Heard the result, it was 3-0, and then by the time we got to Jersey, it was 6-2. So we had a big van, dropped the van off at the house that we'd moved to, hadn't took any furniture out, and then I was raging because I was like, we missed the game, and because me and my dad used to go to the games like home and away when we lived in Glasgow. I was like, we should never have moved here, like what a result, Martin O'Neill's just came, this is it. And he's like, here, like, shut up, I'll take you somewhere. So we're not, pub's actually shut now, but it was called Eastern.
Okay.
Very top end of town. And we hadn't even got through the car park, just where Eastern is, and you could hear everybody's like singing and dancing. You could hear the songs and everything. And as soon as we walked down the little hill, you just saw a big tricolour hanging at the third floor of the window. Walked into the pub, and it was, honestly, it was bedlam. And so I would have been like, what, 14 then? And yeah, basically from then on, for my first day in Jersey, I was like, right, this will do for me.
Had your dad sussed out the club? Was he aware, or was it a kind of,
Yeah, he knew about it because he would have had mates and things. A lot of pals of his would have drunk in the pub. So he knew that it was like sort of Celtic pub. But I hadn't before. I'd never watched a game in there. I hadn't sort of quite grasped how many Celtic fans and how big Celtic was in Jersey before I'd come down.
Yeah, so your dad taking you to the pub at 14, that's concerning, but we'll take that bit off air, Ross. We'll not worry about that, but he's obviously got you into it at an early age, and we'll get into more detail. I know you guys have told me that the Eastern was the base at one point and it's changed over the years, and we'll certainly catch that side of the story just shortly. Woodsy, what about yourself? What was your first experience with the Jersey CSC?
I'd say I must have been a lot younger than Ross, obviously, being from Jersey myself. I'd say my dad probably took me to the Aurora when I was probably about 5 or 6, and I used to sit at the bar. I was one of the only kids actually allowed to sit at the bar because I used to just sit there and just watch the game and not bother with anyone. So yeah, I'd say from a young age, obviously I was going to the pub with my dad kind of every week, or if I had football, whatever, I'd have to miss it. But yeah, been obviously supporting Celtic since I was a young boy. So yeah, from there.
How did you end up? So you're obviously from Jersey. How did you become a Celtic fan? Would that be the norm, or would most of the kids pick an English Premier League team or even a French team, being so close? What's the
yeah? So the norm would be a Premier League team, obviously, being from Jersey. But obviously, with my mum and dad both being from Glasgow, the initial shirt I got given was actually a Man United top.
Okay.
And my best mate, he was a Man U fan. I remember crying when I got it, and I went straight over to his and gave it to him. Mm-hmm. And then my dad's best mate, Chris at the time, he actually went and bought me a Celtic top. So that was my first Celtic shirt, and yeah, never looked back since.
Yeah, and the rest is history. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Gerry, for yourself, could you tell us, I suppose, your own first interactions with the CSC, and maybe a wee bit more about the history? I know it's a story that goes back quite some years, so maybe a wee bit more about the origin story of the club itself as well.
Yeah, well, the club started in around 87, 88 in the aforementioned Easter Wine Bar at Snow Hill, which is a famous Celtic pub in Jersey. Mm-hmm. Not longer with us, unfortunately. The main reason we started was to gain access to Celtic. There was no TV coverage, radio, newspaper. Airline travel was very limited. To get to Glasgow in these days, it was 2 flights up, two flights back. there was no budget airline as such, so it was all very expensive. So we formed the club in a way of sort of fundraising to pay subs and do different things to raise funds, and then there would be enough money in the club to allocate slots for people to go to games. So it was all really about access, because I say that it was unavailable then. So the Eastern was a big Celtic pub, as the boys know, and it's been that way. It's been that way before I went to Jersey. I went to Jersey in 1987, but there was a Celtic community that went there in the late 50s and the 60s, and there was parties that went to Lisbon and Milan from Jersey. So the link for Jersey and Celtic goes back a very long way. So our first, I'll just mention our first function, which was in 1989, when it was a guy called Pat Brennan was the president of the club for a very long time, and it was word about having a dinner dance, which was great interest in, you know, but getting players was a big thing then. It was hard. It was very hard, you know. And Pat, before I say this, anybody that knows Pat would know he's the biggest wind-up in the world. And he was telling us all that Peter Grant was coming to Jersey, the first team player at the time. And we were like, come on, Pat. We've heard some whoppers, but come on, you know. If Pat told you it was dark, he'd open the curtains to check, you know. He's one of the ones. But sure as hell, as the weeks and months went on, Pat was telling the truth for once. So we were all over the moon. And it was 1989, the dance was due to take place. It was a week after the Joe Miller final in May 1989.
Yep.
The night that Arsenal beat Liverpool at Anfield in injury time to win the league. That was the night of the dance. But a couple of weeks beforehand, we got a bit of a bombshell that Peter wouldn't be coming, on the basis that he'd been called up for Scotland to play England, which was due to take place the day after our dance. So it was a no-go. So we were all bitterly disappointed with that, but we hadn't had anybody before, and we were sure if we won the cup, which we did, it'll still be a good night and stuff, you know. But a certain Tommy Burns got word that there was a club in Jersey looking for representation from Celtic, and Tommy very kindly stepped in with his wife Rosemary and took over for Peter in 1989, and therein was formed. We were originally called the Jersey Suntan Tims, believe it or not. But when Tommy came as our first guest, the club was renamed the Jersey Tommy Burns Celtic Supporters Club. But it wasn't only the Tommy Burns Celtic Supporters Club that was formed. Many friendships were formed with the Burns family that weekend, and they lasted. It turned out sadly lifelong friendships lasted. But as I said before, I don't want to harp on too much about things at the start because it made too long. So if I could go back to the Burns, Rosemary and Tommy and the Burns family later on, and then later functions that we had into the 90s, into the 2000s, that would be great. But that's the basic outline of how it started, the first function, and how we got up and running, sort of thing.
Great stuff, Gerry, and absolutely, we'll revisit things. I know that after Tommy had passed away, Rosemary stayed close and continued to attend the events, which is great to hear. So we'll certainly come back to that and then some a wee bit further down the track. I suppose it could all have been very different. It could have been the Peter Grant CSC as well. You know, that would have been the way
he would have been pointing us in the right direction.
That's his thing. But I know the challenges, and I know you guys sent some notes to us beforehand. But at that point, as you were saying there, Ross, late 80s, early 90s, for the guys that were part of the club at that time, the TV era was still some while away, and it was checking teletext or phoning friends at home. And Gerry, obviously, Woodsy and Ross are younger members of the group as such. What were the challenges like in terms of getting the scoreline? Was it that? Was it phoning people? Was it getting on teletext and similar things?
Well, going back to the early days, there was nothing. It was either the video printer at 25 on BBC, or we would chip in 50p coins, and you go into a public phone box, and your ma would put the phone next to the radio. Things like that. It was the way you would find scores. There was no access until I said like BBC or other news, whatever. But there was no. Radio Scotland was very limited. You get a frequency, but it was like you could hardly hear it. It was one night when we were all. It was a Dundee United, I think we played at Tannadice. We all huddled down this radio, and Celtic were losing 1-0 in the last minute, and there was a goal went in, and we were all dancing about the lounge. But it turned out it was Dundee United had scored. The frequency was that bad, So that's how limited it was, That was the 80s, so I think we moved on a bit.
Yeah, the challenges over the years, though, no doubt.
Yeah.
Gerry, I will stay with you for a minute, just as we're kind of talking about the club origins and the names. So obviously, Tommy Burns jersey CSC, but the name evolved a wee bit. Semi-recent, changed the name due to an event you had in 2017 celebrating 50 years of the Lisbon Lions. Can you tell us a wee bit about that event, that night in 2017, and what the new name came to be?
Well, that was a momentous day in my life, believe it or not. But it was the club had sort of fizzled out a little bit for one reason or another. Just probably guys didn't have time to organise it. There's quite a lot to do. So myself and Pat Brennan again and Graham Coyle got together and thought we'd do something for the 50th anniversary of Lisbon. And unbelievably, we got 3 Lisbon Lions. We get Bertie Hall, Bobby Lennox, and John Clark to come, which was absolutely fantastic. And they were absolutely great guests, So Pat, that night, sell out in the Radisson. I think we'd done like 200 people there, and everybody really enjoyed it. I think we'd done them proud. But just a wee side on that, Pat said to me that there was a Jersey family been in touch with him wanting to meet John Clark because John Clark was a relative of them. Okay. So as the boys will testify, there's a lot goes into these things, and I said to Pat, you deal with that. We've not got enough time for that. So I'd forgot all about it. But later in the night, I seen like 5 strangers walking into the hall. The dinners had been done. And I thought, that must be John Clark's family. And it was 3 women, 2 men. And I thought, blah, blah, blah. But little did I know that one in that party is now my wife. And we've been married happy years. So what it turns out that my mother-in-law was John Clark's cousin. And John Clark used to come to Jersey when he was young on his holidays, which we were unaware of. So in a funny sort of way, I'm related to a Lisbon Lion. I'm taking that.
Absolutely taking a very special night, Gerry, for various reasons.
Of course, yeah. And fate's a funny thing. So if Celtic hadn't won the European Cup, I wouldn't be sitting in this house just now. So fate's a funny thing, but it's worked out well.
Yeah, it seems to have done. Now, great to hear that. So so the official name as covered, Tommy Burns and John Clark, Jersey CSC. Ross, I'll come back to you just in terms of where base camp is now. Just in the early recording so far, we've heard about the Eastern, the Aurora. I believe there was a pub called the Granville at some point over the years. But can you tell us where the CSC is now based and whereabouts that is on the island geographically?
Yeah, Tino. So CSC is now based in the Solly pub, which is in St Helier, Jersey on Bath Street. And it's been there now for a good few years. So that's where the main sort of Celtic bar is in Jersey. There's also another pub that guys watch the game in as well, the Prince's Bar. So a few go down there. And that, to be fair, that's probably been the case over the course of the CSC, even for the 80s, 90s, noughties, is that there's always been a few bars in Jersey where people watch the games, whether it be the Eastern, the Aurora, there used to be Scruffy Murphy's, like I said, the Granville, the Solly, and now the Prinny down in Half the Pa. So there's always been a couple of Celtic pubs where people watch the games, but the main one now that we run out of is the Solly.
And do you have a good relationship there, Ross? Are they supportive of what you do in terms of any events or match days or anything else at all?
Yeah, they're great. So we got on well with the barmaid and the bar manager. When it's, we've got pictures up now, frame shirts, set of Joe Hart goalie gloves. And then when it's, like cup finals, Rangers games, European games, one of the other guys that helps with the club, Conor McClyman, he puts all the banners up inside, outside the pub. So they're more than supportive of us. We've got a really good relationship with them. Yeah,
great to hear. Just on that note, Woodsy, so obviously with any CSC, the vibe I definitely get from speaking to the various clubs is that many hands make light work. It's a real team effort at different times, and you need loads of people mucking in to make things happen. You guys are obviously fairly prominent members of the club, given that, we're all speaking here today, but do you have specific roles, Woodsy? Is there certain things that everyone does, or is it just a case of whatever's needing done at any given time?
Yeah, I'd say we kind of do. Yeah, we kind of, we work as a team and stuff like that. I probably got involved maybe 5-6 years ago, just helping doing the flags and stuff like that, just being an extra pair of hands. And And then now I've obviously become a bit more prominent, but yeah, we all kind of muck in and stuff like that. But yeah, it's like to this day, like I've kind of dealt with like the entertainment and stuff like that.
You're a singer?
And then yeah. So I've like got quite a good. Basically, I've done it off my own back. There was a do 3-4 years ago, and we didn't have any entertainment booked. And I kind of got wind of it, and I just went onto Instagram and just started messaging loads of singers, obviously like from Glasgow, and I messaged Shay Doolan as well. And Shay's been coming over for the last couple of years, so I've got quite a good relationship with him and stuff like that. And to be fair, they all come back to me and said they would have come over, but it was just too short notice.
Right.
So I just that's how I kind of first started getting more involved. I just kind of done it off my own back, because obviously I think for the supporters evening, I think the entertainment is the key thing. You can have great talks and stuff like that, but everybody wants to have a sing and a dance and stuff like that. So I think people will remember all the singing and stuff like that. They'll remember little kind of bits out of the evening, obviously from whoever's been there and said certain things, but if you've got good entertainment, I think that's the key thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And Gerry, you had mentioned there, the various events, whether it was that one in 2017. There's so much work that goes on to staging such an event. What's your own main role? What's the most important element of your role at the CSC, Gerry?
It's certainly not singing. As Woods say, we work as a team. If something comes up, it gets dealt with. This year, one of Woods' guys has come up with the guests and all that. Some of our boys over the years, the Keens, Ricky Fearon, Liam Donnelly. We've got a great network of support in Scotland who are linked to the club in various ways, and we've been very lucky over the year with guests. In the 90s, we were spoiled rotten. I think Tommy went back with good reports into the dressing room, and it was off the top of my head. Anton Rogan, Chris Morris, Joe Miller, Paul McStay, Jackie McNamara, Pat Bonner, all these guys and former players as Danny McGrain and Davy Hayes, Stevie, all these guys came to Jersey, and it was unheard of like 5 years before it all, So, but going back to what happens now, as would you say, it's a team effort. We get together, and so far it's been a roaring success. So we must be doing something right.
Yeah, absolutely. Gerry Woods, he's given his own backstory about, supporting Celtic from a young age, 5 or 6. What's your own story? Obviously, you've been in Jersey for a number of years now, but what was your own route into Celtic? Who first introduced you to that in Glasgow?
Well, I'm from Drumchapel in Glasgow. My dad wasn't a great... He was a Celtic fan, but he wouldn't go to the games. My older brother would go to the games. So my older brother took me to the games from the age of... I think the first game was 1975. So... from the age of 5 or 6, that was the way to go. And he took me to Celtic Park. But he actually moved to Jersey in 1981, hence the reason I'm here now. So by the time he went to Jersey, I could start getting on the bus myself and all that. So I came to Jersey in 87 and found this holy land called Eastern. And that's where it all started from. And it's went on since then.
Great stuff. Ross, you'd mentioned that your dad, I suppose like so many of us, it's your dad that's your first influence in terms of your Celtic support life. Was that the case for you as a young boy in Glasgow?
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, before I moved to Jersey, my dad and I had 2 season tickets in the North Stand, and we went everywhere. And unfortunately for me, I started getting into Celtic in 1994, so I would have been 7. My first game was against Kilmarnock. Tommy Burns was actually a player manager at Kilmarnock, and it was the night the Fox ran on the pitch. Yeah. I also think it was the night it was like one of the lowest attendances on record.
It was the boycott, I think, that night.
Yeah. So, great game to make your Celtic debut for me. So yeah, I went to that, and I was a bit like to my dad at first. Not wasn't as good as you'd expect him, but then for then on in. Like stopping the 10, 1998, Scottish Cup final, 1995, Big Pierre, and then, like I said, for sort of 97, 98, 99, me and my old man sort of went home and away to games, so I was absolutely hooked.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose you've gone through some kind of shallower times in the 90s when Celtic weren't really clicking. But I suppose you've not had to wait long. 98 stopping the 10 was massive. And then we talk frequently on the show, as everyone does, about just Celtic's dominance since the year, give or take, since Martin O'Neill came in. There's been a couple of titles for Rangers, but I think Celtic are on track to record their 16th league title of the... Would that be right, since the turn of the century? Something like that. And 40 trophies. It's just mind-blowing. Ross, are you one of those young entitled fans that can't accept defeat? Can we put you in that bracket?
Nah, certainly not. No, any trophy we get, I'll be celebrating it. Yeah, not at all. Because, like I said, I remember probably the start of my Celtic supporting life. You know, there was the lean years. I was at the Raith Rovers Cup final when we lost in the penalty shootout. So no, not at all. I know recently there's been a couple of articles saying this will be the most boring treble that Celtic has won, which is, just does not stand up. Any treble should be celebrated, and this season hopefully we'll be celebrating as much as ever. Yeah,
fingers crossed. The article doing the rounds this week was tedious treble, which is just a crazy statement to be even writing. So I think we'll celebrate this one as much as any other if we manage to do it. Ross, I'll stay with you because Gerry's mentioned a couple of the famous ex-Celts that I've visited over the years, and he rhymed off a whole host of them there. You've obviously had Lisbon Lions that were there in 2017. I believe John Hartson, Lubo, Neil Lennon, Gerard Burns, the artist, and even Matt Busby of Man United fame. Any notable characters? Any stories from their visits over the years?
I suppose quite a good one. Gerry might give me into trouble for telling it, but one year we had Tommy Boyd over. So, usual jersey in the summer, scorching sunshine. So normally what happens is we'll have the main event, and then the day after the main event, we'll have like a little sort of Sunday session in a pub. So that was great. Had the main event, and then so Tom Boyd was over with the League Cup. So then by the Sunday afternoon, Tom Boyd's turned up at the pub, a bit worse for wear with the shades on, having a couple of shandies, but no sign of the League Cup. So everybody's a bit like, where's the League Cup? Where's the League Cup? I think it was last spotted in a guy that's no longer with us, but Ant Martin. I think it was spotted at his house at some point. And then later on in the Sunday afternoon, there's a phone call for the Jersey police station. We've got a League Cup sitting here. We believe it belongs to you boys. So somebody had to jump around in a taxi, get the League Cup, and then bring it back to the pub.
So Tom Boyd could have been in all sorts of bother had that not been. Did he continue to get players? I know it's kind of seems to be harder and harder in this modern era. Access to footballers is tough, particularly current players. But is there players that have continued to come in semi-recent times and join you guys at the club at different times?
Yeah, we've been really lucky. A few years back we had John Hartson and Jackie McNamara over. Obviously, to get current players, I don't think that's probably possible these days. It's something that we would love to do, but yeah, I'm not sure if that's achievable. I just don't think that players are that into it anymore as they were back in kind of the 2000s. But yeah, last year we had Paddy McCourt, Scott Brown, and we had Frank McAvenny as well. So we've had a good variation. And this year we've got Martin O'Neill coming. So so yeah, we have been lucky, and recently the players that have been coming over, I've got a great contact in Brian Mellon, and he kind of has been that link to get the players over. So yeah, obviously we've got links elsewhere and stuff like that, but Brian's been really great to the club and stuff like that, and obviously someone that we really appreciate.
Yeah, and it's great to have that kind of ongoing support. Just on that, you've mentioned Martin O'Neill this year, so yeah, good chance to plug that event. When and where is that taking place? What's the story?
So yeah, that's on Saturday the 7th of June, and that's at the Radisson Hotel. And basically, Mark Guidi's coming over as well. He's hosting and doing the Q&A with Martin O'Neill.
Great.
Last year we had the 20-minute Tims over. They hosted it. So obviously, I think the key thing for me getting involved, and Ross as well, is to keep it fresh and different each year. I think that's essential because it did go stale for a while, many years back. And I think, you do need that. You know, you can get players back over in a few years' time and stuff like that. That's great, but I just think, you know, if you just can get different players over each year, then, you know, the event sells itself anyway. So I think that's the thing that we've, you know, really wanted to do, and we've been lucky enough to be able to achieve that. So
yeah, absolutely. In terms of tickets, is that something you sell internally, or do you then sell tickets further afield, or are they all snapped up by club members?
We basically put it out on social media, and obviously you've got your regular guys from Jersey and stuff like that. And recently we've got more people coming over from Glasgow and Ireland and stuff like that, you know, want to travel and come over because it is a great weekend. Ross organises a golf day on the Friday. Then we have we've called it now the Celtic evening on the Saturday. And then on the Sunday, we have a pub day, and, you know, we've got Shay playing again on the Sunday and a pub and stuff like that. So, yeah, we've tried to do it as kind of a weekend thing now, which they used to do as well. So, yeah, we're just trying to continue that, really. And just, you know, we're getting positive feedback from everyone. Everyone that comes loves it and says that they'll be back again. So it's good for us to hear that.
And it sounds like a brilliant weekend. I'll probably ask again at the end as we wrap up the piece, but is there a place that people can go to buy tickets, or someone they can email or contact, or where's best for that?
Yeah, so we put it out on social media. So on Facebook, it's obviously the Jersey, Tommy Burns and John Clark. And then on Instagram, it's Jersey Boys. So we put it out as that on social media, and then we put our 3 phone numbers on it. And then we've got guys that obviously have tables each year. We'll go back out, contact them first, see, do you want a table and stuff like that? Right, okay, we'll put them down. And then obviously everyone else gets in touch via that. So yeah, you obviously get random people messaging you all the time and stuff like that as soon as it goes out. But the hardest thing is obviously, you know, you can't please everyone, because obviously we have got a capacity, but yeah, like last year I think we had 270. And this year we've only got 250, so it's a bit of a reduction. But with Jersey, you are limited to where you can host it, because obviously there's not that many venues. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at the minute. It's kind of between 2 hotels where we host it. Yeah,
but 250 is a solid number as well. And if it's piqued anyone's interest, what we'll do is we'll link to your socials in the show notes for the episode, and folks can check you guys out there and potentially get in touch if it's of interest. Gerry, I've asked about various Celtic characters over the years, and there's a whole list of them that have attended the club and supported your various events. But what about big characters from the CSC itself? You mentioned Pat Brennan, who I believe was the original founder. There's John Gribben, Brian Dugan, I believe. Can you tell us about some of these guys and what they've done over the years for the CSC?
Well, guys like John Gribben and Brian Dugan, they were like the older guys who went to Lisbon and Milan, so they were like the real forefathers of the club. As I say, Pat over, I would say, a 20-year span, done a hell of a lot of work for the club, and he kept it afloat single-handedly for a long time. But for family reasons, and Pat ran one of the big Celtic pubs in Jersey as well, the Aurora. So he couldn't do it forever, you know. But a couple of the boys stepped in, and it kept going along. But for a few years, as we said before, it fizzled out. But there's been many a character over the years. I would say all Gribby and all that, and I would say out them all for their contribution to the Jersey Celtic Supporters Club, I would say Pat Brennan is the biggest contributor out of them all in our history.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's it's just interesting. You guys find yourself as the guys involved just now. You have picked up the torch, and as you say, Gerry, it's maybe something that ran aground to an extent, but it's great to hear that the enthusiasm's still there and that you guys are able to keep things going and ticking along. Ross, given the location there in Jersey, obviously you're very close to France. Can you tell us about any notable European away days? I mean, you're bang on there for just accessing Europe and wherever Celtic get drawn. Any highlights over the years for yourself or any of the members?
Yeah, there's been a few. So like you said, obviously Jersey's close to France. So anytime we draw a French team in Europe, there'll normally be a good squad of guys going. My sort of first European away trip was to Bordeaux in the year 2000. So Jersey being an island, we can get affected quite badly by the weather. So we were meant to go day of the game, get the boat over to France, to St Malo, and then from St Malo get the train down to Bordeaux. But there was choppy seas, so there was no boats running. So we're like, right, drive up to the airport. Went to the airport. Normally in Jersey, you'll fly to London, and then from London you get connections here, there and everywhere. So there was no flights that would have got us to Bordeaux in time. So me and my dad, Ants Martin, and Joe Rooney, they two guys are no longer with us, and my dad's other mate Des, we're like, what we're going to do? So one of them said, right, we'll go to what's Aviation Beauport, which is like the sort of private jet airport just round the corner for the main airport. So they went in, asked, is there any jets available? They're like, there is by chance, one there on the tarmac. So the four of them have ended up high on the jet. The five of us have got in the jet, flown down to Bordeaux. So we're in the jet, and the pilot's like, oh, hi guys, what you doing? We're like, we're going to the Bordeaux game. Oh, great. And we're like, what are you going to do the night? Because, you know, he was staying the night and then flying us back the next day. And he's like, I'll just chill in, you know, the hotel, and yeah, nothing much. And we're like, you want to come to the game? He's like, you get me a ticket? He's like, we'll get you a ticket. So got the pilot a ticket. He comes to the game. So it was a great trip. We drew that game 1-1. Henrik scored a pen. So that was one of them. Another one was, when was it now? 2013. We played Ajax away. Anytime we draw a Dutch team as well, there's always quite a few boys will go. So unusually, you could get a direct flight from Jersey to Amsterdam at that time. So everyone was like, great, happy days. So it was only a small airline. So as soon as the Champions League draw, it made everybody's like booking the flights. David turn up to the airport to get the flight. So like I said, it's only a small jet, maybe 50-seater plane. And we completely filled the plane full of Celtic fans. So that was good. And also on the flight over, because it was a local airline, you still get free drink when they were coming around with the air hostesses with the trolley. So I don't think the trolley had made it to row 4, and all the bevy was gone, and they were free pouring champagne and everything. So it was good crack. And then another good one would probably be when we drew Rennes in 2019. So for us, geographically, Rennes would probably be like a home game. That's like by far the easiest we could get to. So again, got the ferry over to St Malo, and then from St Malo to Rennes, it's about 40 minutes in the train. So there must have been about easy 200 on the boat for Jersey. So we get down to Jersey, great, everybody's in the big square, usual, singing, dancing with the flags. We ended up, I think Woodsy was with me, my other mate, Ollie Gill, and so it's like the Green Brigade were there, so sort of chatting, saying, hi, how you doing? And they were like the sort of PSG ultras as well. And they were like, why is there loads of guys here speaking with English accents? We're like, that's all the Jersey boys, mate. Like they're all mad Celtic fans. They were a wee bit thrown because, you know, they were like, there's a couple of hundred guys with sort of South England accents, so it sort of threw them a bit. So Rennes away was good. We drew that 1-1 as well. That was Ryan Christie. And then the boat back was a great sing song. Don't think the Condor ferry staff are too happy with us, but all good fun.
Yes, it sounds all sorts of fun in various ways and means to get there. Private jet, CSC, and all of that. You're obviously there at that one in Rennes. Have you been at any other different ones over the years?
Yeah, I've been to a few. Most recent was in Dortmund, so I don't really want to talk about that one. But
let's move on swiftly.
Yeah. But yeah, I went to the Man City game when Patrick Roberts scored at the Etihad. That was brilliant. Obviously, been to Rennes twice. And I'm trying to think, went to Amsterdam as well. But yeah, so obviously I don't actually think I've seen Celtic win an away game, which wouldn't come as a surprise because we don't win many, as we know. But I think my record's maybe three draws, maybe 2 defeats. So not too bad. So yeah.
I always bring up this particular story when I hear things like that. So Paddy, who's an important part of our show, a main part of our show, him and a bundle of his mates often travel, at least once a season, sometimes a couple of away days. And amongst them is a lad, Stevie Keenan, good friend as well. And of all the games that they've went to over the years, they most often lose, sometimes get the odd draw away, but they all found themselves in Rome for that night. We beat Lazio. Olivier and Cham gets the winner. Stevie didn't go. Decided he wasn't going. I think he had a stag do or something. So all the boys' record reads like, 20 away games, one win. Stevie's like 19 aways, 0 wins. But it's just the way it goes sometimes. Gerry, what about yourself? Any memorable trips over the years?
Oh, there's been plenty. Obviously, Seville was a big one. There was in the region of 400 people left for Jersey to go to Seville. It was a big chunk of the population went for a small island to travel that far. Been to Barcelona 2 or 3 times. Amsterdam, I was on that trip that Ross was talking about in the private jet. Unfortunately, I was in row 5. I made up for it when I got there. Been to Amsterdam, but I was in Munich a few years ago, but once again, I've not seen many victories away from home. I was in Brussels when we won 3-0. I think that's the only Champions League against Anderlecht. That's the only Champions League one away from home I think I've seen. And countless visits to Glasgow as well. And the biggest one was Barcelona. We beat Barcelona in the Tony Watt game. That was the standout. That was probably the best game I've ever been at. But it still counts as travelling for Jersey. But yeah, we've been around. We're well known. I mean, we call the locals in Jersey. We call them Jersey Beans.
Okay.
So the young team, I'll keep Ross out of this because he was born in Glasgow. The young team, we call them the Bean Brigade rather than the Green Brigade, So.
Woods, have you made it up to Glasgow at different times? Have you been up to Celtic Park over the years?
Yeah, my first game was 1996. We actually played Aberdeen at home. And I remember we won 1-0. And I think it was the first time in maybe over a year Celtic had actually went top of the league. Because obviously Rangers were dominating at that time for obviously we know why. But yeah, no, I've been up to plenty of Celtic and Rangers games. The most memorable game was probably, I was at that Barcelona game that Gerry just touched on. But yeah, I'll probably say my favourite game against Rangers was the February one when Ange was there, when we beat him 3-0. I'd probably say that. I don't know. It felt like a European night. There's just something about that night. It was just incredible. So yeah, that's probably been my best kind of memories of going up for games.
It's funny how often that game comes up. I was speaking not long ago to the LA CSC, and I think Marty and Jamie both called that game as their absolute favourite. And it was only, February 2022, I think. It was phenomenal. And generally speaking, I think bringing away fans back to that fixture is a positive thing. It's something that should be the case in competitive sport. But that night was just all Celtic. It was a kind of smoky night, a kind of cold night, a crisp air. Floodlights are on. Very rarely you'll play Rangers, on an evening kickoff. And obviously Celtic go off to a flyer. It's Hatate and Leila Bada, I think, at the goals. And an incredible night. And I think most of us, all of us now in more recent times, have it up there as one of the best wins over Rangers in recent times. So it's no surprise that it keeps coming up. Ross, just to bring things back to the club itself, I've mentioned different things that seem to come up from different CSCs, but charity is something that comes up time after time with the various CSCs that we speak with. How important is charity to you guys at the Jersey CSC, and what charities do you generally work with and support? I know you do various different things.
Yeah. It's massively important to the club. So what we do, like you said, every year at the dance, we'll have auctions. So we have the auction items, and over the years we've had some absolute crackers. We had a copy of Gerard Burns's oil painting of the Lisbon Lions. It's in the Celtic boardroom. So we had that one year, and we auctioned that. We've had tickets for games, golf days with players. Some of the items are really, really good to go for some real big money. So what we end up doing is whatever we generate from the auction, that goes to charity. So what we do is we split it 50-50 between local charities in Jersey, and then the Celtic Foundation. So in Jersey, sort of charities that we normally deal with are Brighter Futures. So that's a children's charity for kids in Jersey that maybe don't come from great backgrounds or families that are struggling a little bit. And we've also supported the After Breast Cancer charity, which is another local Jersey charity. And one of the boys, his wife, had actually went through breast cancer. Luckily, she's in remission. And then, like I said, with the Celtic Foundation, we also give them 50% of anything we raise. And they're brilliant with us, because I know on a couple of the podcasts, some of the other CSCs have said, they don't get much interaction with the club. But I've found that, through the foundation, that's been a real support to us. Jane Maguire at the foundation's fantastic with us. So if anybody sort of wanted to, try and get more contact with the club, I feel that the foundation's a good way to do it. And obviously, you're also supporting them through charitable means. So I think that's a really good way.
Yeah, and it's great to hear that, and you're absolutely right to highlight it, Ross. Credit where it's due, and there's things that the various CSCs or some of the CSCs feel the club could be doing better. And I'd maybe be inclined to agree with some of their points, but it sounds like you've got a really good relationship there with the foundation and the great stuff that they do. I know Jane well. Jane herself is great, and it's really good to hear you've got that strong relationship. It's also good to hear that from a charity point of view, it's a nice blend there of helping those closest to yourselves, physically closest to yourselves in Jersey, but also channeling some of the funds to the foundation, who do great work in and around Glasgow, but also further afield. You'll know that they're in Malawi and in various places across the globe. So it's a nice mix here, and it's great to hear. Gerry, am I right in saying, did you guys get featured in or on the Celtic website a couple of years ago for a charity event? Is that something you're aware of? Or?
Yeah, I think Ross organised that, yeah. It was actually Celtic done a feature on it. I think it was 2 years ago, Ross, is that right?
Yeah.
So Ross, you would probably know more than me about that, how you went about that.
Yeah, so that would have just been from one of the, I think it was 2023. That might have been when we auctioned the the Gerard Burns, the Lisbon Lions painting. Yeah, and so they put an article on the website. So again, good exposure for the club, and also some great money raised. I think I was actually tallying it up before when I was doing my sort of homework for the podcast. I think over the last 3 years, we've raised over £33,000. So when you forget that how much each year you raise. So like I said, some good money raised for local charities and for the foundation. Yeah,
that's an amazing amount raised. So well done to all involved for that. Brilliant stuff. Woodsy, let's take it to a match day at the Jersey CSC. So Ross has mentioned, you kind of go between the Solly and the Princess Bar. But let's take it. Is the Solly the main base? And what does a match day look like from start to finish? What is it from pre-kickoff till beyond?
Yeah, so I go to the Solly every week that I can and watch the games. So pre-match, probably getting half an hour before kickoff. If it's maybe a Rangers game, maybe an hour before. And then obviously watch the match. And then, if it's a big game, I'll put the music on afterwards. I'm kind of the resident DJ, if you get me. So I'll just I've got a playlist, and I'll just keep hitting the tunes and stuff like that, and try and keep people in the pub and obviously get a bit of an atmosphere going. So yeah. But yeah, we only kind of do that for the big games and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Then we'll just put on a kind of a normal playlist, after the game, just so if people want to have a little sing song and whatever not. So that's kind of the way that it kind of pans out on match day.
And how does it go in terms of attendance? Does it fluctuate at different times? Naturally, a big game, Rangers or Europe might attract a bigger crowd, but what's the attendances like? Is it fairly consistent?
Yeah, I'd say for a Saturday 3:00 game, you probably get at least 50 guys in there, I'd say. And then obviously for a Rangers game, you get people you've never seen before and stuff like that. But yeah, no, obviously for a Rangers game or a cup final or something like that, the pub is jammed. So it's but it's good. It obviously makes it a better atmosphere. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's the whole reason and why people go to pubs to watch a game, because you want a bit of atmosphere.
Yeah, definitely. And I take it that any new or non-members would be welcome to join you, maybe give you a wee nod on social media beforehand, but they'd be very welcome to join you there.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, we never, you know what I mean, say no to anyone. It's not like, you know, they need to come in and sign in or anything like that. Do you know what I mean? It's just, you know, they're more than welcome. We welcome anybody to watch the games with us. So, yeah.
Yeah, good to hear. Gerry, do you work the door on match days for any rascals that try and sneak in? Are you the bouncer?
They're keeping me out.
Gerry, just in terms of, again, bigger picture stuff, it's a club that's been on the go for a long time. You've mentioned there's members who may no longer be with us, but they were in Lisbon and Milan and things like that in the late 60s and 70s, and then the club formalised 87, 88, 89. What are the biggest challenges that face the club maybe on an ongoing basis? So you've mentioned that, you know, things dipped for a time and now you guys, in a very positive way, seem to have it back on track. But what are the ongoing challenges of running a successful CSC?
Well, I'd say there's, to get guys to pubs and all that now for your normal games, like your 3 o'clock Saturday games, most of the people can get the game in the house now, whether it's through Celtic TV or other matters. So to get guys out to the pub now and watch the game and spend their money there, they're not going to do it. They're not going to do it every week. But as you said, when the big games come along, then they'll come along. So I'd say that's one of the biggest challenges to keep the numbers up on a regular basis. Is because there's different outlets to watch games now. Apart from that, I think numbers-wise, for the size of the island, it's a small island. We actually do well for 280 people last year and 250 people coming to your do. A lot of clubs in Glasgow and elsewhere would be very happy with that. So I think we do okay. But as I say, getting the numbers out on a regular basis to watch games it's a hard shout now. But we get by. We seem to be doing all right.
Yeah, and I think it's, you know, real solid numbers, and as I say, it seems to be a huge effort by, you know, you guys, you know, that I'm speaking to at the moment, but various other guys behind the scenes, you know, playing their part. Gerry, I'll stay with you. We spoke early in the piece about Tommy Burns. Obviously, you know, you've taken his name for the club and you've had a good relationship with his family over the years. Do you want to expand a wee bit on that?
Yeah, well, as I said, when Tommy first came in 1989, he formed a lot of friendships in Jersey, which lasted for decades. And actually, there was a few members of the club who were invited to Tommy's 40th in the mid-90s in Glasgow. So that shows how much respect Tommy had for the island as well. And after he sadly passed away, when we started again in 2017, one of my first thoughts was to get Rosemary involved again, to keep the name of Tommy going. And she wasn't too forthcoming. She was like every year, I'm not coming, I'm not important enough. She was always told that she was a guest of honour because she was representing Tommy, who's the name of the club, you know. So we got her here in 2017 with her friend Liz, who came with her every year since. And unfortunately, as you know, we lost Rosemary rather tragically last year. My wife and myself went up to Glasgow for the funeral. But we've made sure this year that she's going to be represented again. So as well as Liz, a friend, coming as well as a guest, then 2 of the kids are coming. Jenna and Michael will be guests of the club this year because we'd like to keep the legacy going. Because as much as we've done for them, they've done a lot for us. I could tell you a story about Tommy in the early 90s. One of the dudes and Charlie Brennan, Pat Brennan's brother, was walking up King Street, which is the main drag in Jersey. So the night before was the Celtic dance, and there was a lot of drink consumed. And Charlie had his young daughter with him, Kyra, and they were walking up King Street, and they bumped into Tommy and Rosemary. So Tommy said to Charlie, "What are you up to?" And to be truth be told, Charlie was wanting a pint, but he had a little one with him. And Tommy says, "You go for a pint and we'll take Kyra for a walk," quite a thing, you know. And he did, and Charlie went for a pint, and Tommy and Rosemary took Kyra into the top shop in Jersey, the department store in Jersey, De Grishy's, and kitted her out in the best of gear as a way of thank you for us getting him over, you know, and stuff. So things like that, Tommy and Rosemary, they were good to us, and they're sadly missed. But this year we'll keep the legacy up and hope to carry it on in years to come.
Yeah, it's brilliant to hear those kind of stories, Gerry, and it's also brilliant just that ongoing connection with the Burns families there. Tommy and Rosemary sadly missed by many, but great that you guys are keeping that connection up there with the family. Really good to hear. As we start to head towards the end of the piece, lads, I'm keen to ask just a final question. You've spoken about some really good memories, European away days, trips back to Celtic Park. I want to ask specifically about your favourite memory watching a game at the CSC, and on that I'll come to you first, Woodsy.
My favourite memory is actually because I was a kid, it just sticks out in my mind. And there was actually a power cut, and if you remember right, we'd beaten Ajax away from home, and we actually lost the return leg at Celtic Park 1-0. But as it was just getting to the final minutes of the game, obviously complete darkness. Like Ross said before, technology wasn't really there, but obviously you're hoping and praying, and everyone got their lighters and started singing "You'll Never Walk Alone." So that, like, even to this day, you still get the goosebumps and stuff like that, and that just, that sticks with me, and I think that's what Celtic's all about, really.
Yeah, that's a cool story as well. I think, would that have been when we beat Ajax to qualify under Martin O'Neill then?
Yeah.
We won 3-1 away from home.
Yeah, and we lost 1-0, I think, at Celtic Park.
Great stuff. Brilliant memory. Yeah, and sometimes it's those wee things, those wee quirky things that make things stand out. Ross, what about yourself? What's your own big highlight?
There's a few. Barcelona game was mental in the Granville. That was good. To be fair, probably the semi-final, the Boa Vista semi-final, the second leg, when Henrik scored to put us through, because that was when the Aurora was still open. And if everybody remembers the Aurora, like the pub side and then at the lounge side. So I was in like the lounge side, like with my dad and like all the crew. And I just remember like at full time, everybody piled out onto the street because it was that busy, and it was sort of probably about this time of year, so it was getting quite like mild. Pub was roasting, and then everybody just done like a massive huddle on the street. Like this is probably like close to 10 at night. The whole pub was just like doing a big huddle, singing, dancing, and then obviously, like I said, this was before like iPhones and everything, so everybody was like, right, the next day need to like log on, get the laptops out, and start booking the flights and the planes, trains, boats to get to Seville. So I'd say that night in the Aurora that sort of sticks out for me. That was really good.
Yeah, I think that is 22 years to the day. I seen something on social media. I think it's 22 years ago today that we beat Boa Vista to make that one. I'm sure you got your private jet booked up just after that, Ross, for the big one. Yeah, over yourself. What's your own big memory?
Unfortunately, Ross has stole my thunder there a wee bit. It's definitely, even though I watched it in a different venue, it's definitely up at the Boa Vista game. There was so much riding on it because that season was amazing. Even though the Blue Huns won the treble, it was still one of the best seasons in Celtic's history. And a lot of people had booked flights and hotels and arranged tickets even before the semi-final first leg, never mind the second leg. So there's a hell of a lot of riding on that, not just for Celtic, but personally as well for a lot of people. And it would have been a really big anticlimax if we hadn't got there. But we watched the game, the boys will know, the Royal Hotel, a wee bit further out of town. A Glasgow guy ran it. And this hotel, it's actually quite a nice hotel, but it had a bar in it, and we sort of took over it in certain games. And it's quite a busy road, David Place, and you got like 5 or 6 steps to the front door of it. And without a word of a lie, when Henrik scored that night, there was guys rolling down that stairs. There was honestly, and they were on the road. I mean, there could have been dire consequences, Everybody just lost total logic. It was gone when that goal, and it was absolute bedlam. But it had 10 minutes to hang on, and when we did, I think we all headed down the Aurora after that, and it was just a great night. So that for me, watching a game in Jersey was my favourite.
Yeah, I think it's a massive moment for most of us in semi-recent times. As I mentioned, it came up on socials earlier, and I'm in a WhatsApp group, and various guys were just giving... somebody described it as, the kind of Celtic JFK moment. Where were you when Henrik scored against Boa Vista? And most of us can recall with great fondness where we were on that night. Lads, there's been some brilliant stories there, and it's great to hear a whole blend of, back in the day with the CSC, how it's evolved, some big characters, and different, highlights for yourself. But I'll just come to each of you now, just for your own final thoughts, maybe your kind of hopes and aspirations for the club, and anything else you want to add moving forward. I'll come to you first, Woodsy.
Well, I think mine and Ross's goal is the same. Obviously, our target is to try and get Larson to Jersey. I think if we do that, then I could quite happily step away from it and happily retire, because I don't think it'll ever be topped. But yeah, I'd say that's probably the goal, and that's the target for me. I'd love us to be able to do that. So yeah, that'd be my top achievement.
Yeah, so that campaign starts right here, right now. This is the start for that. Brilliant stuff. Gerry, what about yourself? What's your hopes? You've been around a bit longer than the lads in terms of your involvement with the CSC. What's your own hopes and aspirations moving forward?
Well, first of all, the tickets all need to go up. There's another hefty bump to get Henrik over, because I've heard how much we won't be divulging in that. As long as it makes people happy, I find that a lot of people, as long as you get great feedback off it all, and it makes people happy, and having guests over the calibre we have is a big thing, because it makes the difference to the weekend and to the actual dance itself. But also, I find in the way that Celtic are the charitable arm of things, if we can keep going like that and keep contributing to local charities as well as the foundation, then I think that's the way to go forward.
Yeah, spot on, Gerry. Brilliant stuff. Ross, final word goes to yourself, and also if you could give us a quick note for anyone that wants to reach out for any reason, whether it's to attend, one of your big events, a match day, or anything else at all. So your own final thoughts, and maybe some contact notes as well.
Yeah, sure. So like what you said, Operation Henrik is in operations, because it'll be our 40th anniversary in 2029, which seems ages away, but I'm sure it'll be here before we know it. So that's the pipe dream. So we'll get the private jet and send it to Sweden.
Yeah.
But then I suppose what I'd like to see is, you're saying that now, maybe obviously Woodsy and I are a wee bit younger than Gerry, but I'd even like to see like guys younger than me and Woodsy get involved now. The young team. There's a few pals of ours that have got young boys and kids, girls as well, that are coming through, and like Daryl and Big Damo, and they bring their wee boys to the pub and the game, and I'd like to see that more, because it is hard, because obviously you've got in Jersey with all the Premier League teams and the money and everybody, you've got Liverpool, Man City, Chelsea tops. So it's good to try and keep that, getting the young lads and girls through to watch the games, and like we touched on, like not just watching it in the house or on your phone, but coming to the supporters club, like having an iron brew and having a can of Coke, and just because that's sort of what Celtic is, right? Just like everybody being together, like family, friends, having fun. So that would probably be, I'd like to see like more younger folk like coming into the pub and watching the football. And we've got that coming through. And yeah, in terms of contact, me, Woodsy, Gerry, contact us, like you said, if you post the details after on the podcast notes, or like you said, just come to the Solly. Like you said, there's no, you don't have to pay any membership fees or sign in. It's just a pub. So any game that's on, there'll always be people there. Yeah.
Great, and we'll put some links as mentioned in the show notes, some social media links and various contacts if anyone does want to get in touch. But yeah, just to wrap up on it, Ross, I think it is all about that sense of community, isn't it? We're in a world now where folks can sit at home if they want. They can take in their own subscriptions and catch games at home, but you won't get that sense of community, that sense of camaraderie, and just that spirit that you can get at a CSC. And again, I speak about the commonalities between the different clubs, and it's charity and it's community. They're the things that come through, and it sounds like they're as strong as ever with you guys, and it's brilliant to hear. Henrik Larsson never misses an episode. I'm sure he's tuning into this one, so he'll probably pick up on the show notes as well and get in touch. Lads, last thing is just a very sincere thank you to Woodsy, to Gerry, to Ross for joining me here on CSC Stories. It goes without saying, we wish you all the very best for the future, and thanks again for joining us here tonight.
Cheers, Tino.
Yeah, well.